had a conversation with another guest last week, and we talked about the value of mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you find the limit of what works, right? If you're acting in a way that is mistake free, it would be difficult for me to believe that you're really doing what is necessary to try to push the boundaries and improve things and to try to innovate and do better.
We have to learn how to move beyond our mistakes, to incorporate them and then move beyond them. You don't grow if you don't stumble.
Welcome, everybody, to another Growth Secrets interview. I'm here today with Carlos Valdes-Dapena, and I practiced that pronunciation at least 3 times before we got on the call. So I appreciate your grace, Carlos, and thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. You pronounced the name absolutely perfectly, Reed. Always good to be in the company of somebody who wants to get it right.
Well, I'm trying my best. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
Carlos and I had a brief chat. I think it was last week, and we obviously got onto the topic of what's going on in the world and everything that people are having to do to adjust. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his business, and we're going to talk about some things that you guys can apply that are going to help you not only grow your business, but really manage your life amidst all this craziness. So I'm really appreciative of Carlos for joining me. And folks, if you're watching this live, do me a favor, just leave a comment that says live down below. Helps me understand when people are watching so that we can do this at the best time for everybody. And if you're watching this later on the replay on YouTube, or even if you're listening on the podcast later on, just leave a comment that says replay. That's also really helpful. So to go ahead and jump right into it, Carlos, would you mind giving us just a quick background of yourself and in your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, I am the founder and what's the word? I have a fancy term for what I am, managing principal, I think is what it is, of Corporate Collaboration Resources. It is a consultancy devoted to changing the way people think about and do collaboration within large organizations. I founded Corporate Collaboration Resources about 2 years ago with my wife after 17 years at Mars Incorporated, where I was an internal organization effectiveness consultant. It just so happens while I was there, I did some research and that led to the development of a bespoke team effectiveness framework that was adopted by Mars as its global standard for how teams approach improving themselves. Just a little bit more before Mars, I was with IBM for 3 years at the headquarters in Armonk, New York, as an internal executive coach and consultant supporting a subset of the top 35 global leaders. Prior to that, I was an external consultant for about 3 years. I got my start in business in an entrepreneurial firm in Manhattan. I won't even tell you the years because that'll definitely tell you how old I am. But I was there for 9 years, and we grew that business from, I think it was 15 people when I started, to about 125 in 3 different countries when I left 9 years later. It was the best MBA you could hope for, I think, in terms of learning to understand how businesses and people interact and how you get stuff done and how you grow.
Well, that's such a great way of saying that. In my opinion, the on-the-job training is really the true education. Even if you are highly educated, and I don't knock those who are and those who aren't, right? I think what you have done and what you can do speaks much more highly than the education you tout. But there is no denying that the scars and the real world bumps and bruises that you get are where you get your real education.
It is so true. Now, mind you, I went back and got a master's in org development at some point because that helped the resume. That made the resume a more marketable product. But that's why I did it, right? I think you're absolutely spot on. It's the lessons we learn in the trenches, doing what we need to do every day, making mistakes, picking ourselves up and moving on. Learning lessons that way is a big part of what my career is. Even the collaboration work I did at Mars. Yes, I did a lot of research, but contained within that research were countless attempts to do things that didn't quite work out. Had to go back, try it again, see what worked better. Right? It really is all about experience and learning through that.
Oh, no doubt. I had a conversation with another guest last week, and we talked about the value of mistakes.
Oh yeah.
That's where you find the limit of what works, right? If you're acting in a way that is mistake free, it would be difficult for me to believe that you're really doing what is necessary to try to push the boundaries and improve things and to try to innovate and do better. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, absolutely. I think we sometimes talk about a growth mindset. You're familiar with the term? Yep. If we have a growth mindset, we have to learn how to move beyond our mistakes, to incorporate them and then move beyond them. You don't grow if you don't stumble. You don't grow if you don't experiment with some things and learn that way. I think the foundation of development and growth as an individual, which underlies the development growth of our businesses, is all about what you're are you willing to make some mistakes, learn from them, and move on. I'll be honest with you, Reed. I can beat myself up pretty good for a mistake. We're working on an audio book version of my book that's coming out next month, and you go through your text from the book, and even though the thing was proofread to within an inch of its life, you find things that are wrong, right? Mind you, we were trying to produce a complete book in 40 days from concept to print. So it's going to have some mistakes in it. And I'm still kicking myself a little bit for those typos and errors I'm finding. But you know what? We did a bold thing. We produced a series of 10 books in 40 days. And that alone is an accomplishment worth celebrating. And I'll have to find a way next time to find more of those mistakes sooner.
Well, so what you speak of there that is so valuable for the folks who are watching, and maybe they're driving to work right now. For those of us that are still driving to work, or maybe you're sitting at your desktop. But what I want you guys, wherever you are, to really get from this is that uh, shipping product, and that's a term that's often used in the tech space, right? We talk about
Right.
shipping product, meaning that you finish the dang thing and get it out the door and get it in the market is more valuable than having a perfect product. Because Carlos, you may agree with me, there's no such thing as a perfect product. There's nothing that is mistake free or error free or that something hasn't been overlooked, but getting it out the door is the most valuable goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, that's absolutely the case. I come from this industrial background I had at Mars Incorporated, where you didn't put a product out there that could endanger anybody. We didn't want anything in our M&Ms or Snickers that wasn't healthy, healthful, or that could do harm, right? So in those cases, you got to get it right, right? Um, and you take your time and you try some things and you learn from your mistakes. However, in the world I'm working in this completely new world now where all my clients have to interact with me virtually, where I have to get a book out the door, because the critical part of it is the help that's in that book needs to land in the marketplace in a timely way so that people can use it to respond to the stuff they're dealing with. What's perfect about it is the timing. And if there are some typos or some incorrect numbers in a list, you know what? They'll figure it out, but they're going to have the product in their hands that's going to enable them to do the things they need to do. Um, The word perfect is misleading, isn't it? Right? It's a perfect product at the perfect time. Are all the letters and numbers perfect? No, that's not what's critical in this case, right?
Right. I think it's about what is needed, right? And to
Yeah,
put that into
yeah,
context, right? If you really believe in what you do and you really have put your heart and soul into your product, then your customers need what you sell,
yeah,
right? And that may
right.
be a bit extreme, but understand what I'm saying is that the best possible outcome is that your product, your service gets in the hands of
Yes.
your customers because it's going to better their lives. It's going to make them better at their work, better at their business, better at their life, whatever it is. So
Right.
that's the best possible outcome.
And I think that's the way to think about it, right? We want to, what was the word? We want to optimize the outcome.
Yep.
Let's drop that whole notion of what's perfect. What's optimal? What's going to serve the customer and the client in the optimal fashion? And over time, we can iterate, we can make changes, do a second edition and make improvements, come out um, with another version, version 2, version 3. That's how the world works now, right? I mean, just think about software, think about applications on your phone. The updates are almost constant because the key is give them the functionality, give them what they need to make this work, and then over time you can refine and you can make it better. And I think that's what people have come to expect now.
Yeah, the term in tech, and not to use two tech terms close together, but they talk a lot about. I think they say constant deployment. I think is what it is, where
Mm,
updates are consistently being rolled out.
yep,
And then in the
yep,
marketing space that I work in, we talk a lot about data driven marketing and
hmm,
constant optimization, using the
right,
term you did, where you roll something out, you test it, you gather data, then you make changes and you make improvements. A little harder to do when you're producing a print book. I understand that, but I
yeah,
mean, I've got no fewer than 150 books on my shelves in here, and probably no fewer than 10 to 15% of them say second edition, fourth edition, fifth edition, right? Because they've been updated and
yep,
revised
yep,
over time. I'm a big fan of those types of books that have been written. They were written a long time ago,
yep,
and they've remained valuable, and maybe they've been updated and revised to talk about the world in a little bit more relevant terms.
yeah,
But those, I think, are the ones that have the long term value. So
right,
um, I want to shift a little bit, if we will, Carlos, and talk
sure,
a little bit more about your business. So the question that I ask all of our guests, it centers around. I'll ask it different ways, but it centers around the problem that you solve in the marketplace. So when you sought out to create this product or start this business, or take part in this business, what was the problem that you saw and said there has to be a better way, or this is something that we can fix for money?
okay. So the problem that I'm addressing is all the tens of millions, and my guess is it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars of money that is essentially wasted on what I call conventional team building. I've done a rigorous study of the effectiveness of conventional team building exercises and found that while they create a slight bump in people's feelings about each other for for a short period of time, that has no apparent impact on outcomes. So we're doing team building that makes people feel better, but it's not actually helping teams be more effective collaborative units. Does that make sense? And it is that approach to team building is foundational, and it's what's been done for 50 years,
Right.
and it's not working. The research I did at Mars revealed that hole in the approach. And so we asked ourselves, we got to do something differently. What's getting in the way? Why are we spending all that money and not getting actual improvements in collaborative outcomes? And so that's the problem I set out to to solve. The product that came out of that, which we call the high performance collaboration framework, is grounded in a central paradox, which is this: to get great collaboration, you have to focus on individual motivation. To get great collaboration, you have to focus on individual motivation. That's what most team building misses. Most team building says, come on, be good buddies. Go bowling together. Go do a ropes course together. Learn each other's personality types. Yay, come on, come together. And it skips right past the part that says, hey, I'm a hardworking individual. I got a job I got to do. I want to be recognized for it, right? I want to feel good about my accomplishments. If you don't back it up and say, okay, so how do we make collaboration feel important to someone whose foundation is achievement and results?
So that's so good. So I've talked about this a lot, not as eloquently as you put it, and not as in a research backed way as you've done. But I think what is often forgotten in professional settings is that in what I'm about to say is not a slight on the people that this describes, but people are self-motivated. That does
Yes.
not make them bad people. And those
No.
motivations are different, right?
Right.
I love my wife and my children. So what I do professionally speaking is done with them in mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Before any, clients or coworkers. Forgive me. Don't lynch me for that statement, but I love my family more than I
Yep.
love my clients and coworkers.
Yep.
And that is okay, right? And other people may be motivated by different things. Some people are more financially motivated, others are lifestyle, whatever it
Right.
is.
Right.
But to ignore that and to just say, well, take one for the team or
Yes.
pull together, it is ignoring the central motivations. And this is to pull a lesson from, we talked about education. One of the first lessons one learns in economics is that incentives work and people respond to incentives, and everybody has them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is being driven by a core incentive, and aligning those is so important. So I love where you're going with this.
Right. So yeah, it's that idea. I mean, think about the average, and I'm going to make a sort of a cultural distinction here, Western workplace, right? Because there are different cultural assumptions in other parts of the world, but most major corporations are built on what I call a Western model. Think about the typical job posting for a company like IBM or Mars. You want self-starters, go-getters, results-oriented. We hire these people in droves. We bring them in, we pay them as individuals, we recognize them as individuals, we promote them as individuals, and the whole time we're saying, yeah, but you got to be a good team player. Come on, just be a good team player. Of course, people, look, what I found, Reed, is people get cynical about the whole team thing, right? They see the posters on the walls, they see the framed quotes from Lou Holtz, the coach, and they're like, yeah, whatever. I got a job to do, I got mouths to feed, I got a mortgage to pay. The product we developed, this framework for high performance collaboration, has figured out how to make collaboration feel like just one more thing to be achieved that I can feel good about. And part of this, I like to say it this way: to collaborate better, collaborate less on what matters most. To collaborate better, collaborate less on what matters most. Now, that collaborate less thing, all those teamwork posters, all those town hall meetings where everybody's talking about the great team and be a team player, some of the things you alluded to a minute ago, it's almost as if we're expected to be team all the time. But we know we can't be. We know we aren't. And that's where the cynicism comes from. So the goal is to figure out, okay, where do we actually need to collaborate? Where will collaboration feel important to me? And I was just, as I said, recording this audiobook, and I was struck by one line I wrote. Sometimes I surprise myself with a few good words. And any a typical employee in an average company is likely to say, if you ask them to do something, they're either thinking or will ask, so why is it important? Why does this work matter? And why is it important for me to do it? Right? I want to understand that sense of importance to me. And whether it's an individual task or a collaborative task, we should be asking those questions. Why is it important? And why is it important that I do it? If you can answer that question around collaboration, let's say you and I read are expected to get something done together, it's fair for me to say, okay, why is it important for me to be involved in this? How will I add value? And how will Reed add value to me? And if we can make sense of that, if that becomes really clear, it's like, oh, I'm all over that. I am ready to devote my time and energy to it. What I'm not ready for is just be a good team player. You guys just need to be good team buddies. Just come on, have each other's backs, right? Come on, come together. That's empty jargon, right? And no matter how many times we do the Myers-Briggs together, that's not going to shift my orientation towards I'll do it if it feels innately meaningful to me, right? I'll do it if it feels like it's going to contribute to the stuff that matters to me.
Yeah, because the response is, and just to put it slightly differently than you did, it's for what, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and we try to take so much from the sports world. I mean, it's the idea of a team.
yeah,
Obviously,
right.
it comes from sports. But what we forget is that if the team wins, everybody gets to celebrate, right? Mark Cuban said, somebody asked him, why would why put your money into an NBA team? Aren't there better places in terms of a return? He said, yeah, but I don't know how many other businesses you can be in where they'll throw a parade for you if you come out number
Yep.
one for the year, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there is this inherent or this innate reward by collaborating as a team, and that, in my opinion, that has to be, you have to figure out how to do that, right? You have to figure
yeah.
out how to make it meaningful to people, and I'm sure that's the central theme of
It is.
your research and of your thesis, if you will.
Yeah,
So
it's
I think
that's
it's good.
that's you tapped into the keyword meaningfulness. So that little motto I spouted out a minute ago: to collaborate better, collaborate less on what matters most. Let's figure out what matters to people in terms of what matters for them to collaborate, and then that's going to limit what we collaborate on. It's going to draw out a lot of stuff to say, you know what, let individuals go do that other stuff because they'll do it great. They'll do it better than if we tried to force a group to do it. It'll get done faster and more efficiently. So we're collaborating less, right? And that leads to better collaboration because we're focused on the right, most meaningful things. And that's what my life's mission is.
I love the idea. The last thing you said, I love the idea of a life mission, right? And I don't want to be too grandiose, but you've created your own meaning in what you're working on, right? This is meaningful to you to get this message out. Now, that I think creates a whole different challenge in
Mm,
how do you help people create, because I think this is really where you tap into people's motivation and you really get them to overperform, is yes, you can create incentives for them, but how do you get them to tap into their own internal meaning creation software, right? And to say, I want to achieve at this, or I want to do well in this space, or I want to work hard on this because it means something to me beyond just what the incentives are handed down by my employer, by this organization.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think for me, I'm going to turn this towards my clients for a minute, right? Um, the approach I'm offering is somewhat unusual. Most of my colleagues in my field do the sort of traditional, let's go have fun together, let's sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk about our personalities, and that's going to make us a better team. That I have clients who are accustomed to that, and in fact, almost addicted to it. And so the challenge I face as a business person is how do I get them, how do I reframe for them in a way that makes it feel important to them what it means to build collaborative effectiveness. It's a challenge. It's the biggest challenge in my business is I want them to feel as passionate as I feel about what I'm doing and the way I do it, using the understanding and knowledge I have. How do I tap into their motivations to shift from a very satisfying, comfortable way to do team building to something that's actually going to give them a better outcome, but that they're not familiar with? Yeah, it is the central challenge of growing my business, is getting them feeling the sense of, oh, I want to own what he's doing, which is what I'm trying to do here, right? If this technology basically just stays in my head and in my book, it's not serving anybody. Uh, Creating the demand, the genuine demand, creating the motivation in my clients to take this, own it, do things differently is what I think about every day. It's what I think about every day.
So that provides a great segue into the other questions that I ask all of our guests, right? Is what are you doing, practically speaking, to grow the business, right? From a marketing and sales standpoint, right? How do you transfer that, or how do you translate that incredibly meaningful mission into sales and marketing language that is
Right.
effective, right? That's a lofty goal. You're not selling trucks, right? You're not selling candy bars.
Sometimes I wish I were,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no, I'm not selling trucks. It's so look. I need help. I'm. Um, let's go back to the beginning conversation we have. Making mistakes. I've been at this now almost 2.5 years. And let's forget for a minute the whole coronavirus thing. Let's just set that aside because that's thrown a wrench in the works in a way nobody could have seen. But I guess I'm now on my third or fourth marketing person. I'm trying to grow the business primarily through social media. Here we are on Facebook, right? It's a perfect channel for me. I use LinkedIn quite a bit. I write extensively. I have a long list of blog posts. Uh, the real secret in this is the platform, is my platform, is the story that I need to tell and the way I need to tell it. And I have tried several things. So let me give you one example. Um, I was on a podcast about a year ago, and the podcast host, he does podcasts for associations, these not-for-profit organizations that represent plumbers or physicians assistants or electricians in the DC area. So he does podcasts, produce bespoke podcasts for these various associations, and he interviewed me for one of these podcasts, and he was interested in what I had to say about my book, and said, I have an idea. Why don't you do a series of podcasts on your thinking in your book? And we can roll that out over the course of a year or half a year and so forth. And so I invested quite a bit of time and money in recording a series of I call them mini podcasts. They're 3 to 5 minutes long, a few are longer, that summarize the key takeaways from my research and the book. It was a great idea. We are every 2 weeks, one of these podcasts drop. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, letting people know about it. We're not getting the kind of traction I had hoped for, right? Um, and so now I've got a marketing expert working with me. We have a call this afternoon trying to say, okay, how do we refine the platform? The author, that is Carlos Valdes-Dapena, his big ideas, what he's offering the world, the value he wants to provide, and how do we tell that story in a compelling way through the right channels. So I am still, Reed, working out how do we do this. I haven't got a marketing bone in my body that I'm aware of. I'm a thought guy, right? I'm big ideas, really important ideas based on the feedback I get from my clients and from academics. So I think it's important to find the right help. And I've made mistakes on that journey. I've gotten some help, but it hasn't helped me develop the traction I need. The person I've landed with now has quite a good track record, and we'll see what happens.
That's good, and I appreciate your transparency there, and I think we can all take a little bit of a lesson from that in itself, in that not everything we're doing. Well, let me put it this way: not all of the lessons that we have and will learn that help us to get to where we want to go in life and in business are in the past, right? That's
True.
and a tough thing to grasp, is that in whatever the end of our career looks like, when we look back and we're really telling the story of this, how it happened, we're in the middle of that. And I don't think it really matters
Yeah.
where you are in your experience now. If it's not over, you're still kind of in the middle of it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So there's still lessons that we're learning, and I think the really important thing is, are you gathering that data, and are
Right.
you learning from it? Are you making tweaks in a smart way? And I think, to your point about having tried different things, is we also learned that not every tool is right for every job. I would
Yeah.
say that what you've got the engine of really any great marketing campaign. You've got the thoughts, you've got the ideas, you've got the concepts.
Right.
Delivering that, taking that out of your head and getting it to the right people using the right channels, and then getting them back to you so that they are either willing buyers or strategic partners, or whatever your exact sales process is. That's where the art and science kind of have to mix, right? But
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: it's a whole lot easier to have what you have, which is the
Hmm.
the the engine, than it
Right.
is to have to come up with that, right? You're having to figure out the right channels and all those things. Those are figure outable problems. At least
They
they're a
are.
lot
Yeah.
more easily figure outable problems than
Right.
having to come up with an engine.
Right. So we've got the basic building blocks, and there's no doubt that there is value to be had. There's a value proposition for my potential clients out there. And by the way, for me, the big win is a few significant client organizations who want to roll these big ideas out throughout the organization and helping enable them. I'm not about reaching everybody all the time, right? It's about who are the few major players who want to take these ideas and integrate them into their culture, basically. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm really feeling good about the work we're doing now and pulling together the variety of stuff I have out there on social media. I have a few websites, right? I've got this collection of blogs. Just a simple act of SEO, search engine optimization. We thought we were doing it right, and what an eye-opening series of conversations we're having about how we're not doing it right. Right. So I'm later in my career than a lot of people, but I'm still learning. I'm still learning. And that's good. That's what keeps us alive and vibrant, I think.
Totally agree. And folks, for those of you watching and listening, let me tell you, the greatest lesson to take from this when it comes to marketing is that Carlos is still working on this. He's still making attempts, even though he's tried a few times. Even though we're in the middle of the apocalypse, whatever
Yeah.
we're calling this, right?
Yeah.
The only way to truly fail when it comes to sales and marketing is just to quit, just to
Yeah.
opt out, or to
Right.
bury your head in the sand and say, well, everything will go back to normal and it'll be easy again. Well, I got newsflash: it
Yeah.
wasn't easy 6 8 weeks ago when we were in the greatest economy in the history of the world. It was
Right.
still difficult, there was still challenge. I could even make the argument that in times of economic difficulty, the level of competition actually decreases if you're willing to weather the
Right.
storm and you're willing to keep pushing through, and you catch that wave that really works for you. So I'll commend you on that for sure. Carlos, I want to be sensitive of your time. Also want to let people know how they can get to learn more about you. Is your book available for sale?
Couple of things. So there's a new book out called Virtual Teams. How to Hold the Center When You Can't Meet Face to Face. That's now up on Amazon
Great.
for pre-order. It's part of a series of 10 books all about resilience from 10 different angles. We've got communications, we've got how to use nature to thrive during a time of crisis, how to aging well during a time of crisis. So that is available for pre-order. Virtual Teams, How to Hold the Center When You Can't Meet Face to Face. My original book, Lessons from Mars, sitting back behind me here, that is on Amazon and still available. You can find links to all of that at my website, carlosvdapena.com. Carlos V like Victor, Dapena, and I guess my name will show up somewhere, I hope.
Yeah, we'll definitely leave links, folks. I'll go ahead and drop them down in the comments. If
Great.
you're watching along on Facebook or on YouTube, just check the description there. We'll have links to all of Carlos's works, all of his books, as well as his website down below.
Yeah. So, yeah, jump right in, folks. There's lots out there, and I got some advice early on. There's a book called Your First 1,000 Copies, and great little book. Do you know it, Reed?
I haven't. No, I haven't read that one.
And it's just about how do you sell 1,000? How do you write a book and then sell it? And one piece of advice this guy gave was be relentlessly helpful. Put stuff out there that people can use, and if it's good, they'll come to you and say, "Wow, excellent! I want more." Yeah. And this is what I've sought to do. So I've got stuff out there, folks, that's practical. You can apply it tomorrow, and help yourselves.
It's excellent advice, and there's what I would say is the number one growth secret, guys. When in doubt, put out something that helps someone, right? What else are you going to do with your time? If you can't think of any other way to do marketing or to do sales, but to be helpful to somebody, I can't think of a higher form of a higher use of your time. Yeah. Well, Carlos, I really appreciate your time today. This has been really eye-opening. I'm looking forward to getting a hold of your book, and I really am looking forward to our next conversation.
Reed, this has been terrific. Your questions are super, and I look forward to getting back to you in the future with great stories about how my marketing has paid off.
All right. Well, folks, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions for me, drop them in the comments. And if you have any feedback at all on these interviews, please let me know. Always looking to refine things and improve things. As Carlos and I were discussing, we're always looking to optimize the process. So leave some feedback. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all on the next interview.